I should have known something was wrong the moment my phone started playing that song. Not the ringtone, I'm talking about an actual song, coming through the speaker like I had Spotify running in the background. Except I didn't. My phone was sitting on the nightstand, screen black, completely silent 1 second and then suddenly blasting "Blue Moon" by Billie Holiday at 2:47 in the morning. I shot up in bed, heart hammering. The music was crystal clear, like it was being broadcast directly into my room. I grabbed the phone and hit the home button, but nothing was open. No apps running, no notifications, nothing. The screen showed my normal wallpaper, a picture of my dog, Max, who died 3 months earlier. But the music kept playing. I held down the power button until the phone shut off completely. The music stopped. I sat there in the dark, wide awake, wondering if I was losing my mind. Stress could do that to people, right? Make you hear things that weren't there. I'd been pulling 60-hour weeks at the warehouse, barely sleeping, living off energy drinks and whatever I could grab from the vending machine. Maybe my brain was finally telling me to slow down. But when I turned the phone back on, there was a text message waiting. From an unknown number. Sent at 2:47 a.m., the exact moment the music had started. Did you enjoy the song? I stared at the screen for a full minute. Then I deleted the message and turned the phone off again. Whatever this was, spam, a prank, some kind of scam, I wasn't playing along. The next morning, I convinced myself it had been a dream. Or maybe some kind of malfunction. Phones did weird things sometimes, especially older models like mine. I'd had the thing for 3 years, and the battery was starting to go. Maybe it had picked up a radio signal or something. I got dressed, grabbed my keys, and headed to work. The warehouse was already buzzing with activity when I arrived. Forklifts moving pallets, guys shouting orders, the constant beep of scanners and the hum of conveyor belts. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. My supervisor, Rick, waved me over to the loading dock. "We got a problem with the overnight shipment," he said, pointing to a stack of boxes marked with yellow tape. "Half of them came in damaged, and the other half are missing their shipping labels. Corporate wants us to figure out what happened." I spent the morning sorting through the mess, checking serial numbers against the manifest. It was mind-numbing work, but it kept me busy. Kept me from thinking about the music, the text message, the weird feeling that something was watching me from the shadows between the pallets. Around noon, I took my lunch break outside. The warehouse was on the edge of town, surrounded by empty fields and a few abandoned buildings. I sat on a concrete barrier and unwrapped my sandwich, enjoying the quiet. No machinery, no shouting, no. My phone buzzed. A text message. "You looked tired this morning." I dropped the sandwich. The message was from the same unknown number as the night before. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was that it was true. I had looked tired. I'd seen myself in the bathroom mirror that morning, and I'd looked like hell. Dark circles under my eyes, pale skin, hair sticking up at weird angles. But how could someone know that? How could they know what I looked like this morning unless they'd been watching me? I looked around the empty parking lot, the fields, the distant tree line. Nothing. Just heat shimmers rising off the asphalt and a few crows picking at something dead near the fence. I typed back, "Who is this?" The response came immediately, "A friend." I don't have friends who text me at 3 a.m. You do now. My hands were shaking as I typed, "What do you want?" 3 dots appeared, like they were typing a response. Then they disappeared. Then they came back. This went on for almost a minute before the message finally came through. "I want to help you." Help me with what? With what's coming. I stared at the screen, waiting for more, but nothing came. I tried calling the number, but it went straight to a recording. "The number you have dialed is not in service. Please check the number and try again." I went back inside and tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting to the messages. Who was this person? How did they get my number? And what did they mean by, "What's coming?" The afternoon dragged on. Every time my phone buzzed, which was often, because Rick kept sending updates about the damaged shipment, I jumped. But none of the messages were from the unknown number. By the time my shift ended at 6 p.m., I was starting to think maybe it was over. Maybe whoever it was had gotten bored and moved on to someone else. I was wrong. I drove home to my apartment, a one-bedroom place in a complex that had seen better days. The parking lot was full of potholes, and half the streetlights were burned out. I climbed the stairs to the second floor and fumbled with my keys in the dim light. As I was about to unlock my door, I noticed something. The apartment across the hall, 2B, had its door open. Just a crack, but enough to see that it was dark inside. I'd never seen the person who lived there. In the 6 months I'd been living here, I'd never heard any noise from that apartment, never seen anyone coming or going. I'd started to wonder if it was empty. I paused, listening. No sound from inside. No TV, no radio, no footsteps. Just silence. I pushed my door open and stepped inside, flicking on the lights. Everything looked normal. My couch, my TV, my kitchen table still covered with bills and junk mail. But something felt different. The air was colder than it should have been, and there was a smell I couldn't identify. Something sweet and cloying, like flowers left too long in water. I dropped my keys on the counter and checked the thermostat. It was set to 72, same as always. I walked through the apartment, turning on lights, checking the windows. All locked. Nothing out of place. In the bedroom, I noticed that my dresser drawers were open. Not wide open, just cracked. Like someone had been looking through them and hadn't bothered to close them all the way. I always kept my drawers closed. Always. It was a weird habit I'd had since I was a kid. I pulled open the top drawer. My socks and underwear were there, but they'd been moved. Rearranged. Whoever had been in here had gone through my things carefully, methodically. But they hadn't taken anything. My phone buzzed. "You should check your closet." I nearly dropped the phone. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. "How did you get in here?" "Check your closet." I looked toward the bedroom closet. The door was closed, but I could swear I saw a thin line of light underneath it. That was impossible. There was no light in the closet. No windows, no fixtures, nothing. I approached the door slowly, my heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. I reached for the handle and paused. What if someone was in there? What if this was all some elaborate setup, and I was about to walk into a trap? But I had to know. I turned the handle and pulled the door open. The closet was empty. Just my clothes hanging on the rod, my shoes lined up on the floor. But there was something else. A small device I'd never seen before, sitting on the shelf above the clothes. It looked like a router or a modem, with a row of blinking lights. Red, green, blue, flashing in sequence. I picked it up. It was warm, almost hot to the touch. There were no markings on it, no brand name, no model number. Just a smooth black box with the blinking lights. My phone buzzed again. Don't touch it. Too late. The moment I picked up the device, the light stopped blinking and went solid. All of them. Red, green, blue, white, colors I couldn't even name. The room filled with a low humming sound, like the noise old CRT televisions used to make. And then I heard the voice. Not through my phone. Not through the device. It was coming from everywhere and nowhere, like it was being broadcast directly into my head. "Hello, David." I dropped the device. It hit the floor with a plastic thunk but kept humming, kept glowing. I've been waiting for you to find that. I backed out of the closet, my hands pressed against my ears, but it didn't help. The voice was inside my head. Don't be afraid. I told you I wanted to help. Get out of my head. I yelled, but my voice sounded thin and distant compared to the voice in my mind. I can't do that. Not yet. But I can explain. I ran for the front door, but my legs felt heavy, like I was moving through water. The apartment stretched out in front of me, the hallway seeming to get longer with each step. You're not going crazy, David. You're not hallucinating. This is real. I reached the door and grabbed the handle, but it wouldn't turn. The lock was engaged, but I hadn't locked it when I came in. I twisted the deadbolt, but it was stuck fast. The device in your closet is a prototype. Experimental technology. It creates a direct neural link between two consciousness. I pounded on the door. Help. Somebody help me. No one can hear you. The device creates a localized field that dampens sound waves. You could scream all night and your neighbors wouldn't hear a thing. I slumped against the door, my strength gone. What do you want? I want to show you something. Something you need to see. The air in the apartment shimmered, like heat waves rising off hot asphalt. The walls seemed to dissolve, and suddenly I wasn't in my apartment anymore. I was standing in a vast, empty space. The floor was white and reflective, stretching out in all directions. There was no ceiling, just a gray sky that seemed to go on forever. Where are we? This is a shared space. A place where minds can meet. Think of it as a conference room for consciousness. I looked around, but I was alone. Where are you? I'm here. A figure materialized in front of me. It looked human, but wrong. Too tall, too thin, with proportions that didn't quite match reality. Its face was familiar, but I couldn't place it. Do you recognize me? I stared at the figure, trying to remember where I'd seen that face before. And then it hit me. You're me. I'm you from a parallel dimension. A place where things went differently. The figure stepped closer, and I could see the differences now. This version of me was older, maybe by 10 years. Scarred. His eyes were darker, harder. He was wearing clothes I didn't recognize, and there was something in his expression that made my skin crawl. In my world, the experiment succeeded. We learned how to transfer consciousness between bodies, between realities. It was supposed to be the next step in human evolution. What experiment? The one you're about to become part of. The white space around us began to shift and change. Walls appeared, forming a room that looked like a laboratory. Banks of computers, wires and cables running everywhere, and in the center, a chair that looked like something from a dentist's office, but with restraints. This is what they built in my world. What they're building in yours. Who's they? The people who've been watching you. Who've been watching all of us. The scene changed again. Now we were standing in what looked like a control room. Through a large window, I could see dozens of people sitting in chairs like the one I'd seen in the lab. They were all connected to machines, their eyes closed, their bodies motionless. They're still alive, the other me said. But their minds are somewhere else. Somewhere they can be controlled, manipulated, used. Used for what? Labor. Entertainment. Experimentation. When you can control someone's consciousness, you can make them do anything. Make them think anything. Make them believe anything. I watched the people in the chairs, and I realized they all looked familiar. Not personally familiar, but familiar in a generic way. They looked like normal people. Office workers, students, retirees. People you'd see at the grocery store or walking down the street. How many are there? In my world? Millions. In yours? The project is just beginning. Why are you showing me this? Because you're next. The device in your closet is a prototype transmitter. It's been mapping your neural patterns, learning how your mind works. Soon, they'll be ready to make the transfer. Transfer to what? The other me smiled, but there was no warmth in it. To me. The white space began to dissolve around us. I felt myself being pulled back, reality reasserting itself. I was in my apartment again, standing in the bedroom, the device still humming on the closet floor. You have maybe an hour before they come for you, the voice said, fainter now. Use it wisely. The device went dark. The humming stopped. My apartment was silent again. I stood there for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. Part of me wanted to believe it was all a hallucination. Stress-induced psychosis. Too much caffeine and not enough sleep. But the device was real. I could see it, touch it. And the messages on my phone were real too. I needed to get out of there. I grabbed a duffel bag from the closet and started throwing clothes into it. My hands were shaking, but I forced myself to move quickly. Clothes, toiletries, my laptop, whatever cash I had in the apartment. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay here. As I was packing, I heard footsteps in the hallway outside. Slow, deliberate footsteps. They stopped right outside my door. I froze, listening. The footsteps resumed, but they were different now. Lighter. Like whoever was out there was trying to be quiet. I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. The hallway was empty. But the door to apartment 2B, the one that had been cracked open earlier, was wide open now. I could see into the apartment, and it wasn't empty like I'd thought. It was full of equipment. Computers, monitors, machines I didn't recognize. And there were people in there. 3 of them, all wearing identical gray suits. They were watching something on a bank of monitors, and I could see myself on one of the screens. Not a live feed, this was recorded earlier, showing me walking into my apartment. They'd been watching me. Probably for weeks, maybe months. One of them turned toward the door, and I saw his face. It was perfectly normal, unremarkable. The kind of face you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting him. But his eyes were wrong. They were too bright, too focused. Like he was looking at something fascinating. I backed away from the door, my heart racing. I had to get out, but they were right across the hall. If I opened my door, they'd see me. I went to the bedroom window and looked down at the parking lot. It was a 15-foot drop to the ground. I could probably make it without breaking anything, but it would be loud. And there might be more of them down there. My phone buzzed. A text from the unknown number. Fire escape. Back of the building. Go now. I didn't question it. I grabbed my bag and headed for the kitchen window. It faced the back of the building, where there was a fire escape I'd never used. I opened the window as quietly as I could and climbed out onto the metal platform. The night air was cold against my skin. I could see the parking lot from here, and there were 2 black SUVs parked near the entrance. People inside them, waiting. I climbed down the fire escape as quickly as I dared. The metal creaked under my weight, but I tried to stay light on my feet. When I reached the bottom, I dropped into the alley behind the building. My car was in the front parking lot, but I couldn't get to it without being seen. I'd have to find another way out. I started walking, keeping to the shadows, staying away from the main road. The complex was surrounded by woods on 3 sides, and I figured I could cut through them and come out on the other side of town. As I walked, my phone buzzed with more messages. Good. Keep moving. Don't go home. Don't go to work. Don't go anywhere they'd expect you to go. There's a motel on Highway 9, about 20 miles north. The Sleepy Inn. Pay cash. Use a fake name. I'll contact you when it's safe. I wanted to ask how this person knew so much, how they seemed to be helping me while also being connected to whatever was happening. But I didn't have time to think about it. I just needed to get away. I made it through the woods and came out on a residential street about a mile from my apartment. There was a 24-hour gas station on the corner, and I called a cab from the payphone outside. The driver was a middle-aged guy with a beard and a baseball cap. He looked normal, but I found myself studying his face, looking for signs that he might be one of them. His eyes seemed normal, though. Tired, but normal. "Where to?" he asked. "Highway 9. North. Long way. Gonna cost you." "That's fine." We drove in silence for most of the trip. I kept checking the mirrors, looking for headlights following us, but the road was empty. When we reached the motel, I paid the driver and watched him drive away before I went inside. The Sleepy Inn looked like it had been built in the 1960s and hadn't been updated since. The neon sign flickered, and half the letters were burned out. But it was the kind of place where nobody asked questions, and that was what I needed. The desk clerk was a thin woman with bleached hair and too much makeup. She barely looked up from her magazine when I walked in. "Need a room," I said. "How many nights?" "Just one." I didn't know if that was true, but I didn't want to commit to anything longer. $45. I paid in cash and signed the register with a fake name. She handed me a key attached to a diamond-shaped piece of plastic with the room number on it. Room 12 was at the end of the building, facing the parking lot. It was small and dingy, with a bed that sagged in the middle and a TV that only got 3 channels. But it was anonymous, and right now that was all I cared about. I sat on the bed and tried to think. What was I supposed to do now? I couldn't go back to my apartment. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't call the police because what would I tell them? That I was being stalked by men in gray suits who wanted to steal my consciousness. My phone buzzed. "Are you safe?" "For now." "What happens next?" "We wait. They'll search for you, but they won't find you there. Not tonight." "Who are you really?" "I told you. I'm you. From a place where things went wrong." "How is that possible?" "The same technology they're using to map minds can also open doorways between dimensions. I've been trying to contact versions of myself in other realities, trying to warn them." "Warn them about what?" "About what's coming. The project in your world is just the beginning. If they succeed, if they perfect the technology, they'll expand it. First your city, then your state, then your country. Eventually, they'll have access to every mind on the planet." I set the phone down and rubbed my temples. This was insane. Parallel dimensions, consciousness transfer, global mind control. It sounded like something out of a science fiction movie. But the device in my closet had been real. The men in the gray suits had been real. And right now, I was hiding in a motel room because I was afraid for my life. The phone buzzed again. "You don't have to believe me. But you have to act like it's true. Because if I'm right, and you do nothing, then you'll end up like me." "What happened to you?" "They caught me. They transferred my consciousness into their system. But something went wrong. Instead of being trapped in their virtual reality, I was scattered across multiple dimensions. I exist in all of them now, but I'm whole in none of them. That's why you can contact me. That's why I can contact all of you. There are thousands of versions of us out there. Some have already been captured. Some are still free. I'm trying to save as many as I can. What do I need to do? Tomorrow morning, there will be a package at the front desk. Inside, you'll find everything you need to fight back." "Fight back how?" "You'll see." The line went dead. I tried to call back, but the number was disconnected again. I spent the rest of the night sitting by the window, watching the parking lot. Every car that drove by made me tense up, expecting it to be the black SUVs. But nothing happened. The motel was quiet except for the occasional truck passing on the highway. As the sun came up, I finally allowed myself to relax a little. I took a shower and tried to eat some of the vending machine food I'd bought, but I couldn't keep much down. My stomach was in knots. Around 8 a.m., I went to the front desk. The same woman was there, but she looked like she'd been up all night. She had dark circles under her eyes, and her hands were shaking as she poured coffee from a pot that looked like it had seen better days. "You have a package for room 12? I asked. She looked at me with confusion. Package? Someone said they'd leave a package for me. Nobody's left anything. Been here all night. I felt my heart sink. Maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe the voice on the phone was just another delusion, and I was losing my mind after all. But then she said, "Wait. There was a guy here around 6 a.m. Left something in the mailbox outside. Said it was for the guest in room 12. I went outside and checked the mailbox. There was an envelope inside, thick and heavy. My name was written on it in handwriting I didn't recognize. I took it back to my room and opened it. Inside was a letter and a small electronic device that looked like a flash drive, but more complicated. The letter was written in the same handwriting as the envelope. David, it read. By now you're probably wondering if you're losing your mind. You're not. Everything I've told you is true. The device with this letter is a counter-signal transmitter. It will disrupt their equipment and make it impossible for them to track you. But it only works within a limited range, and it only lasts for 24 hours. After that, you'll need to find another way to stay hidden. The men who are hunting you work for a company called Neuralink Industries. They've been developing this technology for years, funded by government contracts and private investors. They chose you because you fit their profile: single, isolated, no close family or friends who would ask questions if you disappeared. But they made a mistake. They underestimated you. And they underestimated me. There's a storage facility on the outskirts of town. Unit 47. The combination is your birthday. Inside, you'll find everything you need to expose them. Documents, recordings, evidence that will shut down their operation. But be careful. Once you activate the counter-signal device, they'll know someone is working against them. They'll come after you with everything they have. Good luck. Yourself. I read the letter 3 times, trying to absorb what it was telling me. Then I looked at the device. It was about the size of a thumb drive, but it had a small screen and a single button. The screen showed a countdown timer, 23 hours 59 minutes and 58 seconds. I pressed the button. The timer started counting down, and I felt a strange tingling sensation, like static electricity running through my body. The device grew warm in my hand, and I could hear a faint humming sound. Within minutes, my phone started buzzing with notifications. Text messages, emails, missed calls. The signal was being restored. I checked the messages, and most of them were from my work, wondering where I was. But there were also several from unknown numbers, and these were different from the ones I'd been getting. We know where you are. You can't hide forever. Come back, and we'll make this easy. Run, and we'll make it hard. I turned off the phone and packed my things. I needed to get to that storage facility before the device stopped working. The storage facility was on the other side of town, a cluster of metal buildings surrounded by a chain-link fence. I took another cab, paid in cash, and walked through the entrance like I belonged there. Unit 47 was in the back row, away from the main office. I entered my birthday on the keypad, and the lock clicked open. Inside, the unit was filled with boxes, filing cabinets, and computer equipment. It looked like someone had been using it as a makeshift office. I started going through the boxes. They were full of documents, photographs, and computer printouts. Neuralink Industries research reports, test subject profiles, budget allocations. The scope of the project was staggering. They had facilities in 12 states, and they were planning to expand internationally. One folder contained photographs of people sitting in the chairs I'd seen in my vision. But these weren't test subjects. These were employees. Scientists, administrators, executives. All of them had been transferred to the virtual reality system. Another folder had a list of names. Thousands of them. People who had been selected for the program. My name was on the list, along with detailed psychological profiles and surveillance reports. They'd been watching me for 8 months. I found a computer that was already powered on. It was connected to the internet, and there were files on the desktop labeled Evidence, Recordings, and Contacts. I opened the Contacts file and found a list of email addresses for journalists, government officials, and human rights organizations. I started copying files to a flash drive, but before I could finish, I heard cars pulling up outside. Through the small window in the unit, I could see the black SUVs. They'd found me. I grabbed the flash drive and as many documents as I could carry. There was a back exit to the storage facility, and I ran for it, keeping low between the rows of units. I could hear them behind me, shouting orders, running footsteps. I reached the back fence and climbed over it, dropping into a field of tall grass. The counter-signal device was still working, but I could feel it getting weaker. The humming sound was fainter, and the tingling sensation was starting to fade. I ran across the field toward a line of trees in the distance. Behind me, I could hear dogs barking. They'd brought a whole team to hunt me down. I reached the trees and kept running. The forest was thick, with undergrowth that caught at my clothes and branches that scratched my face. But it provided cover, and I could hear the sounds of pursuit getting fainter. I ran for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Finally, I couldn't run anymore. I collapsed behind a fallen log, gasping for breath, my heart pounding. The counter-signal device beeped once and went dark. The timer had reached 0. Almost immediately, my phone started ringing. I looked at the screen. Unknown number. I answered it. Hello, David. It wasn't the voice I'd been hearing in my head. This was different. Older, more authoritative. We need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. I think you do. You have something that belongs to us. You mean the evidence of what you've been doing? I mean the prototype transmitter. And the files you took from the storage unit. I'm going to expose you. No, you're not. Because we have something you want. You don't have anything I want. We have your dog. My blood went cold. What? Max. He's not dead, David. He's here with us. Would you like to hear his voice? There was a pause, and then I heard it. Barking. Max's bark. I knew it as well as I knew my own voice. But that was impossible. Max had died 3 months ago. I'd seen his body. I'd buried him in the backyard of my old house. That's not possible. We've been watching you much longer than you think. We took Max before he got sick. We've been using him as leverage, waiting for the right moment. You're lying. Building 7, Neuralink Industries. Sublevel 2. Come alone, and bring the device and the files. We'll make the exchange. What exchange? Max for your cooperation. The line went dead. I sat in the forest, staring at the phone. It had to be a trick. Max was dead. I'd seen him die. But the barking had sounded so real, so familiar. And if there was even a chance that Max was alive. I looked at the flash drive in my hand. It contained enough evidence to shut down Neuralink and expose their crimes. But if I gave it to them, they'd continue their work. They'd capture more people, transfer more minds, expand their control. But if I didn't give it to them, and Max was really alive, then I'd be abandoning him. I closed my eyes and tried to think. What would the other version of me do? The one from the parallel dimension? My phone buzzed. A text message from the number that had been helping me. It's a trap. Max is dead. I'm sorry. How do you know? Because in my world, they used the same trick on me. I fell for it. Don't make the same mistake. But what if you're wrong? What if he's really alive? Then saving him won't matter if they take over the world. I knew he was right. But the thought of Max being alive, being held captive, was tearing me apart. I made my decision. I walked out of the forest and found a payphone at a gas station. I called the number on the first business card I found in the evidence files. A reporter from the Washington Post. This is Sarah Chen. I have a story for you, I said. About a company called Neuralink Industries. I'm listening. I told her everything. The device in my closet, the men in gray suits, the storage facility, the evidence I'd found. I told her about the consciousness transfer project, the test subjects, the plans for expansion. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. This is incredible, she finally said. If what you're saying is true, this could be the biggest story of the decade. It's true. I have documents, photographs, computer files. I can prove all of it. Where are you now? I can't tell you that. But I can meet you. Somewhere public. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop downtown. I took another cab, paid in cash, and tried to stay calm. The counter signal device was dead, which meant they could track me again. But I was committed now. I had to see this through. The coffee shop was crowded, which made me feel a little safer. Sarah Chen was easy to spot, a woman in her 30s with short black hair and glasses, sitting at a corner table with a laptop and a digital recorder. I sat down across from her and handed her the flash drive. This contains everything, I said. Financial records, test subject profiles, internal memos, recorded conversations. Enough to shut them down and put the executives in prison. She plugged the drive into her laptop and started looking through the files. Her eyes widened as she read. My God, she whispered. This is monstrous. How long will it take you to write the story? I need to verify some of this, make some calls, but I can have a preliminary article online by tomorrow morning. That might not be soon enough. They're looking for me. And when they find me, then we need to get you somewhere safe. There is no safe. They have resources, connections, technology. The only way to stop them is to expose them. As I was talking, I noticed a man at the counter. He was wearing a gray suit, and he was looking directly at us. Our eyes met, and he smiled. We need to go, I said. Now. Sarah looked up from her laptop. What's wrong? They've found us. I looked around the coffee shop. There were 3 more men in gray suits, positioned at different exits. We were surrounded. Back door, I said. Through the kitchen. We made it to the kitchen before they could react. The staff looked confused as we pushed through, but they didn't try to stop us. We ran out the back door into an alley. My car's around the corner, Sarah said. We ran to her car, a blue Honda Civic, and jumped in. Sarah started the engine and pulled out of the parking space just as the men in gray suits emerged from the coffee shop. Where are we going? I asked. My office. We can work on the story there. They'll find us. Not if we're fast enough. We drove through the city, checking the mirrors constantly. Taking side streets to lose anyone tailing us. My heart was still racing, and every car behind us felt like a threat. Sarah kept her cool, weaving through traffic like she'd done this before. I didn't ask how she was so calm. I was just glad she was. Got a plan, David? She asked, glancing at me. Get that story out. Tonight, I said. If it hits the internet, they can't bury it. Too many eyes. She nodded. My editor's gonna flip, but he'll push it through if the evidence checks out. We pulled into the parking garage of her office building, a gray high-rise downtown that looked like every other office in the city. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as we parked, and the echo of our footsteps felt too loud in the empty space. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting those gray suits to step out from behind a pillar. Sarah's office was on the 5th floor, a cluttered newsroom with desks covered in coffee cups and sticky notes. It was after hours, so the place was mostly empty except for a janitor vacuuming in the corner. She led me to her cubicle and fired up her computer. Start uploading the files, she said. I'll call my editor and get him on board. I plugged the flash drive in and started transferring the documents. The progress bar crawled, and every second felt like an eternity. I kept glancing at the door, half expecting it to burst open. Sarah was on the phone, her voice low but urgent, explaining the story without sounding like a conspiracy nut. She was good. Then the lights flickered. Just for a second, but it was enough to make my stomach drop. The janitor's vacuum cut off, and the room went dead silent. Sarah, I whispered. You see that? She hung up the phone and looked around. Yeah. Probably just a power surge. But we both knew it wasn't. The air felt heavy, like it had back in my apartment when I'd found that device. That sweet, cloying smell was back too, faint but unmistakable. Like rotting flowers. The computer screen glitched, pixels scattering like static. Then, without me touching anything, a new window opened. A video feed. It was grainy, but I could make out a room with concrete walls and a single chair in the center. Strapped to the chair was a dog. Max. He was alive. His fur was matted, and he looked thin, but it was him. He whimpered, his head turning like he was looking for me. My chest tightened, and for a second, I couldn't breathe. David, don't, Sarah said, grabbing my arm. It's a trick. But then the video zoomed out, and I saw the men in gray suits standing around Max. One of them held a syringe filled with something dark and viscous. He looked directly at the camera and smiled that same empty smile I'd seen in the coffee shop. Building 7, Neuralink Industries, a voice said through the computer speakers. It was the older voice from the phone call in the forest. You have 1 hour. The screen went black. Sarah's computer rebooted itself, and the files I'd been uploading were gone from the flash drive. Erased. They're screwing with us, Sarah said, her voice shaking. They've got access to my system. I stood up, my hands clenched into fists. I have to go. No, you don't, she snapped. They're baiting you. You walk into that building, you're not walking out. They have Max, I said. And they'll kill him if I don't show up. Max is dead, David. You said it yourself. You buried him. Then how do you explain that video? I yelled. That was him. I know my dog. Sarah grabbed my shoulders. Listen to me. They've been inside your head. They know what'll break you. That's what this tech does. It manipulates. It lies. I wanted to believe her, but that whimper was burned into my brain. I kept seeing Max's eyes, pleading. If there was even a chance he was alive, I couldn't leave him. I'm going, I said. You stay here. Get the story out. You don't have the files anymore, she said. They wiped them. Then I'll get more. Building 7. That's where the answers are. She stared at me, then sighed. You're an idiot. But I'm not letting you go alone. We left the office and took her car to the industrial park where Neuralink's headquarters was. It was a sprawling complex of glass and steel, lit up like a Christmas tree even at night. Building 7 was in the back, a squat concrete structure with no windows and a single steel door. It looked like a bunker. We parked a block away and approached on foot, sticking to the shadows. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it'd burst. Sarah carried a small digital recorder, just in case we found something we could use. The door to Building 7 was unlocked. That alone should have sent us running, but I was past caring. I pushed it open, and we stepped into a dark hallway. The smell hit me immediately, stronger now, like a whole flower shop had gone bad. The air was cold, and there was a faint hum, like machinery running deep underground. We followed the hallway to a stairwell that led down. Sublevel 2. The lights were dim, flickering every few seconds. At the bottom of the stairs was another door, this one with a keypad. I didn't have a code, but as I reached for the handle, the door clicked open on its own. "Trap," Sarah whispered. "I know," I said. But I walked through anyway. The room beyond was exactly like the one in the video. Concrete walls, a single chair in the center. But Max wasn't there. Instead, there was a man in a gray suit sitting in the chair, his hands folded in his lap. He looked up as we entered, and his eyes were wrong, too bright, like they were reflecting light that wasn't there. "David," he said. "You're late. Where's Max?" I demanded. He smiled. "Max served his purpose. You're here now. That's what matters." Sarah stepped forward, holding up her recorder. "Who are you? What is Neuralink doing?" The man ignored her. "The project is bigger than you can imagine, David. You've seen a piece of it, but you don't understand the whole. We're building a new world. A better world. By stealing people's minds?" I said. "That's not a world I want." "You don't get a choice," he said. "None of you do." He stood up, and the room seemed to shift. The walls shimmered, like they had in my apartment when the other me showed me that vision. Suddenly, we weren't in the concrete room anymore. We were in that white space again, the one with the reflective floor and the endless gray sky. Sarah gasped beside me. "What the hell?" "This is the future," the man said, his voice echoing. "A place where every mind is connected, every thought controlled. No chaos, no conflict, no pain. No freedom," I said. He shrugged. "A small price to pay." Figures began to appear around us. Dozens of them, then hundreds. They were people, but their faces were blank, their eyes empty. They stood motionless, staring at nothing. "These are the ones who came before you," the man said. "They resisted at first. Now they're part of something greater." I looked at Sarah. She was pale, her recorder still running, but her hands were trembling. "We have to get out of here," she whispered. "There's no out," the man said. "Not for you. Not for anyone." I felt that pull again, stronger now, like something was trying to drag my mind out of my body. My vision started to blur, and I could hear the hum, louder than ever, vibrating in my bones. But then I heard another voice. The other me, the one from the parallel dimension. "Fight, David. You're stronger than they think." I focused on that voice, clinging to it like a lifeline. The pull weakened, and my vision cleared. I looked at the man in the gray suit. He wasn't smiling anymore. "You can't stop it," he said. "The machine's already started." "Then I'll break it," I said. I lunged at him, tackling him to the ground. The white space shattered, and we were back in the concrete room. Sarah was already at the computer bank along the wall, typing furiously. "I'm in their system," she shouted. "I can shut it down." The man grabbed my shirt, his strength unnatural. "You're making a mistake," he hissed. "Then it's my mistake," I said, and slammed my fist into his face. He went limp. Sarah hit a key, and the hum stopped. The screens around us went dark, and the air felt lighter, like a storm had passed. "We did it," she said, breathing hard. "The system's offline. Their servers are fried." But I knew it wasn't over. "We need to get out. Now." We ran back up the stairs, through the hallway, and out into the night. The complex was alive with activity now, security guards, more gray suits, all converging on Building 7. We made it to Sarah's car and peeled out, dodging a blockade at the gate. We didn't stop driving until we were out of the city, pulling into a rest stop an hour away. Sarah uploaded the recorder's audio to her cloud server and sent it to her editor with a note, "Publish this now." The story hit the news by morning. Neuralink Industries was exposed. Raids shut down their offices. The evidence I'd given Sarah, combined with the audio, was enough to spark a national investigation. But I didn't stick around to see it. I ditched my phone, changed my name, and moved to a small town out west. I keep a low profile, pay cash, and check every place I stay for strange devices. I still hear Max's bark sometimes, late at night. I tell myself it's just a memory, but I'm not sure. And sometimes, when I'm alone, I feel that pull again, like something's trying to drag me back to that white space. I don't know if they're still out there, rebuilding, waiting. But if they come for me again, I'll be ready. Because I'm not just David anymore. I'm the guy who fought back.